What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. We hit the 63,000 subscriber mark, which means we gave away our first Super Nintendo Classic. After reaching out through email, I got a hold of him. Congratulations to Eric. I put a tweet out over on Twitter with their handle attached. If you want to check it out, you can. But that means now we are on to the second Super Nintendo Classic to be given away at 66,000 subscribers. So a new link is now down in the description. You can get signed up there, and hopefully you can win the next one. But there's some fun stuff to talk about today, including a canceled Star Wars Rogue Squadron game that kind of took the internet over at the end of last week. That's very interesting. So let's get started. So on Nintendo Voice Chat, which is IGN's Nintendo podcast they do where they get together every week and they talk about everything Nintendo pretty much. And that's actually the podcast that Philip is now hosting. He's doing a good job there. He hosted his first full episode this past week. And what an episode to host, because they have Julian. I'm sorry, Julian. I'm going to get this last name wrong, so I'm just going to say it now. Julian Eggebrecht. Had him on. He's actually was the president of Factor 5, and now he's working with Hulu. So they have him on, kind of talking about Hulu, but of course they know what they want to talk about, right? He's from Factor 5. Of course we're going to talk about Rogue Squadron, in particular, a game that was canceled. Now this canceled game was called Rogue Leaders, and it was on the Wii. So Star Wars Rogue Leaders, and it was a compilation of Rogue Squadron and Rogue Leader with a bunch of different changes to it on the Wii. Not only were they going to have like special control schemes around the Wii Remote, because of course it was a motion controller. Things like lightsaber duels using the Wii Motion Plus's one-to-one motion was going to be also implemented, and the whole game was going to be running at 60 frames per second, which is awesome. According to them, the assets in the game that they were using were actually well above what the Wii could display because of its low resolution. So any of like the X-Wing, for example, was made up of 30,000 polygons. So to them, it could still work into today's technology. So what's the one thing that they ask him? Could you put it in today's technology, namely with the Nintendo Switch? Because it's kind of a shame no Star Wars game is out or even announced at all for the Switch. EA currently controls that license with Disney, and according to Julian, they could make it happen. In fact, it's to the point where they could probably just implement it right on their developmental Switch, the one they have that they use for Hulu and I'm sure other things that they're working on. According to them, it would probably run fine on there, and it's up to EA and Disney at this point, because they could get the so-called, the band back together, Factor 5 if they needed to, the correct people, and they could put it together and they could build this Rogue Squadron type game for the Switch. It's something I would love to see. I bring it on now. Like, I would buy that instantly. I think a lot of people would. And I think it would just sell tremendously well with the current Switch audience. Even going forward, if it wouldn't be out for another couple of years, it would probably still do really well. But here's the thing. We just talked about who controls it and who it would have to go through. It'd have to go through EA. Specifically, EA, who wants to keep a games as service mentality going forward. We're getting word now heavily with Battlefront 2 being what seems to be a grind fest unless you put money in, with, according to a lot of people, after timing it out and doing math, up to 40 hours to unlock one hero, like Luke Skywalker, for example. And that comes from credits that are earned over time, not how you actually score in the game. That sounds tremendously to me like something that is designed for you to put money in, since you could just buy the crystals or the credits and then you get Luke Skywalker right away. What do you think people are going to want to do, right? Spend 40 hours getting him, or spend 5 minutes dipping into your wallet? Now, if EA were to implement them in this, I hope it wouldn't hurt the game. In fact, I would love to see EA take a game like this with Factor 5 and Disney, of course, kind of working in there with all their licensing stuff, work all of that out so that we can see this game come out in the sense that it would be a lower budget, since it's mostly done, according to Julian, a lower budget AA kind of game, something that doesn't cost a ton of money to bring out, but that we would really enjoy. I think a Star Wars game like a Rogue Squadron or this Rogue Leaders type game would be fantastic. I hope that they can work something out in the background, and I hope EA is at least thinking about it, but my concern is that they are more worried about how can they get loot boxes in this, rather than how can they make a really cool game that would sell well as a $60 base model. Next up, we got a massive surprise over the weekend. We had a new DLC set announced, or at least a character expansion set announced for Injustice 2, and it wasn't anything I was expecting. I don't know about you guys, but when they come out and they announce Enchantress and Adam, I was like, okay, that makes sense. That's awesome. But as they're fighting in the trailer, they kind of look to their right, or left in their case, and here comes a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, Raphael in particular, walking down the street in his signature trench coat, throws it off, and now all 4 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are a part of Injustice 2, which sounds crazy. Now, we're trying to figure out a couple things. Is it going to be just one character because it showed all 4 of them? Or are they going to have basically them act as one entity and they'll switch out? Maybe just one of them actually fights and the others kind of help them with tag team moves or special abilities. Maybe their special move is all of them attack at once or something. That's how I don't think all 4 of them are going to be added in. I think it'll just be basically one character with them rotating and doing different things to be a part of that character, especially since in the trailer that he kind of says act as a team and then they all rush in. But either way, man, who expected that? You know what? I'm actually more surprised that it kept under wraps so well in this day and age with the internet as opposed to them actually being in Injustice 2. But how cool is that? I love that. And right now I really like Injustice 2's character set that they're kind of building up with some of these surprises, because TMNT in Injustice 2? Sure. Now we're coming up on Black Friday, which is a day where prices are slashed all over the place. Then it leads into Cyber Monday, where that kind of continues. It's mostly that Thursday to that Monday where you can get stuff pretty cheap as long as you shop around and make sure you're getting stuff, or at least figure out what is quality and what isn't, because sometimes Black Friday is when they try to offload cheap stuff. Trust me, I know. But here's the thing. Sony comes out now and says, hey, here is what we will provide for Black Friday. And those deals are good. We're to the point where if you don't have a PS4, you might want to look into this, because it's getting harder and harder not to have one with some of these prices. The PlayStation 4 is going to be knocked down from $299 down to $199. That is the terabyte model. It's like not like a 500 gig, a bunch that they had laying around or something. No, the 1 terabyte model is going to be $200 brand new. That is so cheap. If I didn't have one, that would be the one I'd go get it. Seriously, $200. That's so hard to beat. And then they're also going to have the PlayStation VR set with Gran Turismo, the bundle. It's going to go down to $299, so $300. That's pretty enticing as well. Technically, it means you get a PlayStation 4 and PlayStation VR with Gran Turismo for $500 total. That's not bad. I know VR still is like kind of an unknown and people aren't sure still if they want it. That's not bad though. $300 is pretty good. They also talked about the DualShocks going down to $40, so you can get PlayStation 4 controllers for roughly $39.99 depending on where you're shopping. I know Walmart did that last year, I think, too, but Sony's just making it that way across the board, which means any participating retailers that do participate in this will get back-end rebates, so they will more than likely do this because it will help them move their stock. Now, it's going to run from November 19th to November 27th, so up to Cyber Monday. And man, great deals all around. I mean, seriously, I've seen the Xbox One go down to $190 or so now, $180, and then here we are at the 1 terabyte PS4 for $200. It's hard to have a reason not to buy that. If you don't have a PS4, it might be time to get one. We also had Digital Foundry do their standard analysis of Doom on the Nintendo Switch. What they do, if you don't know, Digital Foundry goes through games, checks resolution, effects, and everything. And Doom was going to be the hot topic. We all knew this. When it came out, people were going to scrutinize it like crazy. I knew Digital Foundry was going to do it as well, really go through resolution, adaptive, how far does it drop, where does it sit usually. And they gave us some numbers and gave us a few ideas as to why it might look blurry. Now, if you have Doom, you may notice at times when you're looking around, it can get kind of blurry, and that generally happens when there's a lot of stuff happening on screen, right? We have the adaptive resolution. We all know this. It'll change resolution depending on what's happening on screen. Digital Foundry ran the numbers, found that in handheld mode it drops as low as 562p, but when in docked mode it hovers usually around 600p, so it does drop below 720p, and then there are times where not a lot's happening and it kind of has some time to catch up, and it can go up to 720p in either position, whether it's handheld or docked. Either way, it can go up to that amount. But you have a lot of people who are really, I guess, happy in a way that the Switch isn't doing high def or it's not doing 60 frames. It's very odd. People are kind of poking fun at the Switch, but they don't realize what's actually happening in front of them, which is very interesting in that a tablet processor is running a 2016 AAA game that the PS4 and the Xbox One don't even max out. So to me, that is a massive win for mobile technology in general, because what this tells me, guys, is it's not going to be too long until Doom is actually playing on cell phones. Like, in a few years, Doom might just show up on the App Store or on the Android Play Store as something you could download for your phone, because mobile technology is evolving quickly. The Tegra, the X1, is a processor from 2015. I mean, that's got to tell you something right there. It's that The Switch punches well above its weight. It pulls anywhere from 7 to 15 watts of power, depending on what's happening. The Xbox One, PS4 pull well over that. I think the Xbox One S pulls like 75 or 80 watts. But the X, when I opened it up, had a 280 watt power supply, I think, in it. So that'll tell you everything you know there. I wouldn't say the Switch version is bad for what hardware it is, but I do understand that there are people who just aren't into like anything drops that low in resolution, or they don't like Doom at 30 frames. That's your choice, but I wouldn't poke fun at the Switch version because it's doing stuff it shouldn't be doing right now with Doom, Wolfenstein's coming up, LA Noire, and there's some big games that are going to show up on this little device. So it's very interesting, I think, from a technology standpoint. And real quick, Stardew Valley, they did say a patch is coming out for it to fix a lot of the crashing and just some overall bugs that are kind of happening in it. It's going to happen when you put these games out. The feedback will come back to you from the community, and they'll tell you what doesn't work, what's messed up. But the interesting thing here is they're going to be adding video recording, which is really cool because I could see a lot of games start to just get video recording as they do bug checks, or maybe that's just something that they can add in now that Nintendo has made that like public, and apparently, according to them, developers can just use it. So it's very interesting to see that. I mean, video recording is cool and all. I wish they would increase the number of seconds that you can do it, since it's like 30-second clips. Either way, though, cool to see it added in. I'll be curious to see if they add it into pretty much every game now going forward, if just developers have the option to just add it in during development time. And in our last bit of news, we have a new world record for Super Mario Odyssey. And this is interesting because this can kind of answer that question. How long does it take you to 100% the game? And I think there's a lot of people who are curious how fast speedrunners are getting this done. When I say 100%, I mean pretty much 100%. I mean like all moons, I think it's all coin currency, including the purple coins, all hats, and everything basically that you could think of doing in the game, you have to do. Not only that, they do it in one sitting. And this was done in 17 hours. The new world record holder by the name of Oki Karum took just over 17 hours to collect every single moon, collect every single outfit, 100% the game completely, and it is absolutely insane. Not only do you have to do all of that, you also have to capture all 52 enemy types. It's insane. 17 hours, though, is crazy to get that done, and they're honestly, at this point, people are just going to keep knocking that score down. This isn't the last time we're going to see a world record set for Mario Odyssey. It's crazy to see that get done. Now, remember, we did see Mario 64 get run in like an hour, a little over an hour and a half or something, so I don't know if they'll get to that point with Mario Odyssey, just because there are so many moons to collect. But man, it's going to be interesting to see if anybody ever gets down to like 10 hours or less. That could get absolutely out of control. I'm sure there's going to be other speedruns where people figure out better ways to kind of go around and get all the moons. But man, this was so cool to see. If you haven't seen it, it's worth checking out. It was over on Twitch where they did this. But it's pretty fun to watch. Just keep in mind, you're going to get spoiled. I mean, it's 100% run. What do you expect? And that's it for Newswave today, guys. Make sure you comment, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let me think about any of the stuff we talked about today, including the Super Mario Odyssey run. Do you think 17 hours is pretty impressive for that? I think it is, considering I've put that much time in and I'm nowhere near 100% the game at all. I'm like halfway done the game, I guess, in terms of just moon count. I haven't gotten all the outfits or anything yet, but let me know what you guys think down in the comments for that. Also, let me know what you think about the Black Friday deals. Do you think they're good? Do you think you're going to pick up a PS4 or an Xbox One now? Is this finally the time to do it now they're both going to be sub $200? I think it's time to do it, and definitely let me know what you think about Rogue Squadron, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people calling for that, and maybe if EA hears it and they're like, maybe we can make some money here even without loot boxes, although I can't even say it. I can't say it with a straight face anymore. EA, no loot boxes. I mean, come on. It's almost commonplace now to say EA, loot boxes. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.